annual projected expenditure of the department did not exceed the department's current budget. During and then it goes on to say adjustments verified by the departments of the management and budget. Additional, all proposed budget adjustment between department, including capital improvement projects, shall require approval by the City Commission ordinance or resolution. During the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, any changes or deviation in excess of $5,000 per transaction from the current approved budget for those departments under the authority of the city manager require city manager approval with the advice and writing concurrence with the members of the City Commission designated by the presiding officer and copy, and which shall be provided to the city clerk. Now, this I also have Mirta requesting June 30 and 2010. And this is the memo you sent. It says marks the end of the third quarter of the current fiscal year of the beginning of the additional fourth quarter monitoring of budget transfers and prescribed on the city anti-deficiency note. Budget transfers received after June 30, 2010 that exceed $5,000 per transaction will require both city manager approval and the writing consent of the chairman of the City Commission or the commissioners. We sent a memo out, and I only received one, which was from Bayfront Park Management Trust, where they explained the reason why the budget, they had changes on the budget, and it was signed and approved by the manager and myself. And this is something that can control all that we have talked about. We have a budget that needs to be followed. That budget tells you how many people you're going to utilize, and so on. You know, but and a lot of people are not aware that this existed, and this was passed in '98. Is that being implemented?
Meet the DZIC Budget Department. All of our analysts have, before the end of the third quarter, made contact with their respective departments and made them aware that the third quarter or the fourth quarter requirements were coming up, and that if they had any transfers that exceeded the $5,000 limit, that they should submit it before that deadline. If not, that they would have to follow the procedures prescribed in the anti-deficiency.
Have all the departments comply with it?
Yes, we have not received any budget transfer requests to date in excess of $5,000 between any line items. If we do receive any of those budget transfer requests, then we do require the department to prepare a memo to notify the chair and the city manager.
Okay. Thank you. I understand you want to address this?
Yes, I do. Commissioner Carollo, I want to start with, we have a solution, and that is to stop hiring. In dealing with the Anti-Deficiency Act, the Miami FOP continues to come up with solutions to help end the fiscal crisis. This doesn't take the city administration off the hook for many of the unessential new hires we have running around here. I don't think I have to spell them out. Before any union gives 1 cent of concessions, these people shouldn't be here, and they should be laid off now. In our last negotiation session, we were asked by Mr. Matamore to come up with ways to save the city of Miami money. Our ideas have not been considered, and Mr. Johnny Martinez has authorized the Miami Police Department in hiring 47 new police officers. Our budget director says we have money. Where? We just increased our deficit to $61 million, rolled back taxes, and we were looking at furloughs long enough to shut down police service for 2 entire months. Do I really need to say more? We have worked through 4 managers to fix the problem, but nobody will listen. Based on the information we have, the City of Miami Police Department is heading into violating the Anti-Deficiency Act. As of July 20th, motor fuel is over budget by $2.3 million. And even if no one wants to take responsibility for the gas costs, the bottom line is emergency vehicles need gasoline, and the bill has to be paid. Overtime is over budget by $1.6 million and will continue to climb for the next 2 months. There is no funding for the 19 positions that the Miami Police Department is immediately trying to hire. I have an email, which I just gave to all of you, verifying that Chief Exposito stated that we were having the next 19 police officers paid by the cops hiring grant for the next 3 years. I told the manager for weeks it wasn't a factual statement. The manager told me that we were hiring these police officers because they were free. We weren't convinced. The manager was misled in believing in these positions not impacting our general fund. We can't afford to properly fund city physicals for sworn current members. There's no money for full uniform allotments since 2008, and we are short $1.2 million in our emergency vehicle fleet. Our current sworn members are looking at many furlough days, because we really don't know how many, because we're still playing with the numbers. And even after being misled and told that the COPS grant doesn't cover the entire 19 positions, the city manager is authorized to hire new police officers. 19 for now, 47 in total. The city of Miami says we need to come up with $7 million because of our deficit. That's before you guys throw in the other $6 million. How do we negotiate in good faith when the city manager is authorizing $3.5 million, 47 police officers, when we have a deficit? By the way, the current COP grant expires next July, leaving the city on the hook for the salary and fringe benefits, and that doesn't include emergency vehicles, fuel, physicals, uniforms, bulletproof vests, that will now come out of the general fund for the next 3 years after that. This isn't the time to be hiring. What is a greater concern is that we are hearing that the Miami Police Department is projected to go in the red by at least $500,000. I have 2 goals during this pocket item. Have this commission direct the city manager not to hire any more sworn members until we take care of the sworn members' benefits we employ today. City physicals. Make sure that the people that we have on the street right now are healthy enough to do the job. Vehicles, uniforms. If we are in the red, have the police department make adjustments to prevent us from being over budget now, not at the end of September or in the middle of September, now. If there are salary savings, then you should honor the collective bargaining agreement and not cut our benefits even more when the city has a fiscal deficit. The FOP would love to hire 500 police officers this year to keep the streets safe. However, the city just can't afford it right now. And Chairman Gort, with your permission, I would like to have several members of our department come up to the podium in order to inform the commission of our current financial status.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead. Yeah.
can we honor that request?
Miguel Exposito, Chief of Police. Good evening, Commissioners. The FOP Vice President questions the deployment of our officers and the use of overtime. His concerns have been prompted by an effort to reduce the department's operating budget and consequently police services in order to find additional dollars in these fiscally challenging times. At times, he may voice his concerns in regard to public safety. His emphasis and prioritization on dollar reduction clearly dominates his message and definitely overshadows the goals and mission of the police department. As Chief of Police, my priorities are to maintain officer safety and to deploy an operationally effective workforce in regard to safety of the public. I am given a prescribed budget in order to realize these priorities. We are over 50 officers short, and we worked within those parameters to maximize the resources we currently have in order to deliver the best possible service to this community while maintaining officer safety. The Miami Police Department uses a 3-pronged comprehensive approach to attain its goals and objectives. It is a balance of reactive patrols, which are the police officers that answer calls for service, the investigative follow-ups, which are the detectives that work in homicide, robbery, and some of the other investigative units, and proactive techniques, which are our tactical operations section, which have been responsible for doubling the number of weapons we took off the streets last year. We went from about 600 firearms that we had confiscated the previous year to over 1,000 that we confiscated last year, and the majority of them were brought in by the tactical operations section. The FOP suggested that we stop the hiring process and start transferring some of the people from these different units into patrol. Yes, it'll create a little bit of presence in the street, and they can save some money, but it's not going to get the job done. One thing that we've noticed throughout the year is there are times where we've had to move our tactical operations section officers into one specific area because we had a significant problem. And what we've noticed is that the area that they vacated, crime starts to go up right away. So that tells you that if you put everybody in patrol, and that's all you're doing is answering calls for service, all we have are officers that are writing reports all day, and there's nothing being done to get the criminals off the street. Although this wasn't mentioned by Sergeant by Ortiz, I would like to point out that under the current FOP contract, the city agrees to allow the FOP president, as well as 2 of his designees, to be released from their police duties throughout the life of the contract. In addition, the city agrees to establish a time pool of over 7,000 hours per fiscal year to be utilized by members designated by the FOP. The 3 members currently exercising this opportunity all hold the rank of sergeant. The time pool donation in real dollar well exceeds $200,000. In conjunction with the FOP's wish to save the city money, this might be an opportune time to revisit this generous provision. Last year, I stood before you and was praised for saving $5 million in overtime expenses as compared to the previous year. As a result, in this year's budget, our overtime dollars were reduced by those $5 million that we saved the previous year. This year, attrition kicked in, and we lost over 50 police officers. At the current time, we're short 56 police officers. We have gone over in our overtime costs by $1.3 million, as reflected in the May report. During the same period, we saved $3.2 million in salary savings as a result of the vacancies of these police officer positions. Therefore, comparing our overtime overage and salary savings, we actually are $1.9 million under budget. In addition, we have $800,000 of reimbursable overtime that we have not yet received are in the pipeline. $200,000 of the budgeted fuel dollars were also transferred for physicals for our officers. They were transferred from our fuel budget over so we could have physicals. I don't know where Sergeant Ortiz got his information, but apparently it's incorrect. The projections are that we will be under budget by the end of the year by about $1 million. I will now bring Ms. May Shepard, who's the commander of our budget unit, who can break down the numbers and answer any of the questions that you have relating to this subject. May?
May I say something?
Yes.
Chief Exposito, respectfully, I'm not incorrect. You are incorrect. You're looking at a May report. Your overtime is actually $1.6 million and climbing. And if you look at your, I'm sorry, 1.6 now, because we're really at $4.2 million. And when it comes to, give me 1 second, I'll tell you right now. We're at 4.4. We're over by $1.6 million, and when it comes to fuel, we're up to $2.3 million. And as much as we want to hire, the bottom line is we don't have any money. And when the chief sold the idea to the city manager that we could hire 19 police officers, total of 47, off the cops hiring grant, the current grant that we have going on, which by the way exhausts July of next year, which means August and September, we're going to pick up the 43 that are on it now, plus 7 if we fund those. Because right now, what has occurred is he was told, the manager was misled and told, look, this is all going to be covered by the grant. When I spoke to the manager told me, Javi, they're free, that's why we're doing it. They're not free. This pocket item comes in, the chief now tells them that they're not covered, that only 7 can be covered. It's only for a year. It could be extended possibly to 2, but we're still on the hook for the other 43 that are not budgeted for next year. You got to put in for physicals. They don't cover that. They don't cover cars. They don't cover any of that. Uniforms. Yet we're going to hire. And by the way, in order to hire these 19 positions, it's got to be in your fund now. Because I've spoken to the U.S. Department of Justice. You have to have funding now. And once you show the funding and it's uploaded to the Department of Justice, they'll give you that money back. And there is no funding. There's no money for gas. There's no money for uniforms. There's no money. We have this huge budget, but we're going to keep on spending. And I can jump up and down and scream as loud as I can, and I'm pleading, please, stop spending money. We were right now in the red. And that's why we're here today, to stop this from happening.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask the manager, what was told to you by the chief? I just get clarification.
Well,
versus what, I just want to establish the truth.
The minutes of the meeting that was conducted in order to approve the grants, it says, Chief Exposito indicated that the U.S. DOT grant is paying for 43 officers, positions currently, and 7 hires will be made from the U.S. DOT grant. Any positions above the 50, which is the 43 plus the 7, will be funded from the general fund, anything over the 50. And in that everything, that they were within budget and the positions were within the budget, and they were not above the budget.
Right.
Correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And that we needed to have a baseline of 1,137 positions, which is the 1,087 that we have in place now, plus the 50, give you the 1,137 policemen that you need as a baseline.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, May Shepherd, City of Miami Police Department. I would like to clarify in reference to the term of the cops hiring grant. The grant is scheduled to expire not July of 2012, but October 1st of 2012, because it started October 1 of 2009. It's a 3-year grant. And the city is only required to retain those officers hired under the grant for a period of 1 year, not 3 years. And that is outlined in the contract that was signed by the city that specifies the terms and conditions of the grant award. And we can make that available to FOP.
May I ask her a question? Are we funded to?
But we're going to be going back and forth.
It's not about going back and forth, but the bottom line is, are we funded for new hires? Are we funded for the 19 new hires right now?
Yes, we are.
And we're funded for next fiscal year also?
Well,
Which is in 2 months.
Our budget has not been adopted by the commission.
Okay, but our budget director is right now trying to pull out $2 million from today's budget. They're trying to pull out $2 million for today's budget. We're already in the red as it is. How are we going to fund these positions?
We're not in the red. There's a monthly projection report, and this report is available on the city intranet. It's prepared by the budget department, and it's published by the finance department. The latest that's been published is May 2011. I think the June 2011 report has been prepared but not published. I was trying to obtain a copy of that report before I got here today, but our budget analyst told me he could not release it to me. But in looking at the May projections, you will find that we're projecting a 3.2 million salary savings, overtime deficit of 2.3, which is going to give you a net surplus of $1 million in personnel. But if you go to the operating, because of the fuel, we're projecting a 1.7, not a 2 point, I don't know what figure you came up with, it's 2 point something. We're projecting a 1.7. So the 1.7 deficit in the fuel is going to offset the savings in the salaries. But the bottom line is we're looking at about $8,714.
Are you saying a 3.2 million salary savings and $2.3 million overtime should be combined to add or subtract?
It's subtract the 3.2, which is a positive,
Right.
from the 2.3, which is a negative.
So about 1 million.
Yeah,
You said, and then you said there's a 1.7 deficit for
projected in the fuel.
fuel. And how will you make that up?
Well,
I mean, if I just take your net 1 million over your 1.7 deficit, it's a $700,000 loss.
no, well, what's happening, we have some savings in some other line items,
Okay.
which I'm not going line item by line item. I can make a copy of this report available.
If you went line item by line item, would you offset your $1.7 million fuel deficit?
Well, you're gonna offset $1 million from the personnel, and we have savings in other line items like professional services, because we're not gonna be proceeding with the lieutenant exams, not in this fiscal year. It's not gonna happen. We have savings in some other line items, repair and maintenance, but you have to look at it.
Yeah, combining.
Mr.
Line item by
What would
line
your
item.
combine be? It'd be $1 million from your personnel plus what from all the other categories?
Right, and if you factor in the $800,000 reimbursable overtime.
Okay.
But is that also projecting fuel for the next 2 months
Yes, it's projecting.
and overtime for 2 months?
Yes,
And the 500,000 you owe us in uniforms and 1.2 million you owe us in cars for this year?
well, this is the general fund. I don't have that on the cars. That's over on the GSA side.
What about the $500,000 in uniforms? That's us.
It's here. Remember, we did the transfers.
Right, we're still owed a
Bobby,
$500,000.
excuse me, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
I'm not going to have this discussion all
Okay.
night long here. We have a budget director. Yeah, I'll give you a minute. Commissioner Suarez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the most efficient way of doing this is to have them write us a report that basically outlines what their projections are for the remainder of the year, and we can analyze that report, we can digest it. Hopefully, the more current, the better. If it's as of June, we've already closed June, hopefully we can get the June numbers included in that. And I would say line item by line item, because I know this commission. So line item by line item, your budget to actuals and what your projections are for the rest of the year. And that's it. We can analyze it from there and go from there. Kind of.
Did you hear the,
I'm sorry, no.
okay. You would like to see a report.
Yes, sir.
A budget to actual and then a projection for the year. I mean, based on the current,
Sure.
usage.
We produce that
Every month.
that projection on a monthly basis. We have not issued the June reports because we saw an anomaly while we were reviewing the report, and we wanted to make sure that we drilled down and clarified all the questions we had. So that's delayed our issuing of the report.
Let me ask you a simple question. Is it your opinion that based on the current expenditures that the police department's budget is in danger of being out of balance, or is maybe not in danger because that's a little more subjective, but is on pace to go out of balance?
If certain expenditures are not curtailed, and there have been management initiatives taken to curtail those expenditures, they would have. The biggest concern that we had this month was the fuel charges. The fuel consumption seemed to have gone up.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we get the actuals? Why don't we get what's budgeted, what the current rate is, and whatever strategies are necessary to make sure that we do not go out of budget?
Absolutely.
I think Ernst & Young needs their first assignment tonight.
I just wanted to clarify something, and that is back in January, the city manager at the time went to a new fueling system with credit cards. At the time, we didn't agree with going to those credit cards. We thought the best way was to continue doing it the way we were doing, gassing up at the Dade County fuel pumps, and that's created a bit of a problem with our fueling. With the current city manager, I spoke to him about that, and I explained to him what our concerns were, and he agreed with us, and we're going back to the old system. So that should help with some of the problems with the fueling. There was a clerical error in which we were being overcharged for some reason, but that was caught. So maybe that's the figure that Sergeant Ortiz has, is that erroneous figure. But in any case, I think with going back to the old system that we thought was a better system, I think that you're going to see the fuel costs go down.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask the
Okay,
chief
just want to
question?
make sure we get all that information from the Budget Department,
Mr. Chairman,
and also make sure the FOP gets a copy and everyone gets a copy. Yes, sir.
this is just a question on the fuel cards. Is there any way that we can get a determination as to whether there was any abuse on those cards? Because it appears from what you're saying, and that when we changed over the system, all of a sudden there was an inordinately large amount of fuel being used. And is there some sort of ongoing effort to determine if anyone was specifically abusing of?
Yes, we're doing that. We're following up on some of the expenditures that looked like they're way out of whack. That was our concern, and that was the reason we didn't want to go to these fuel cards where people could fuel at any gas station. We want to go back to the county pumps, and that's what the current city manager has agreed to do, and I think that's the right move.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
every time I deal with this issue, I'm going to be accused of making it personal. So I'm going to try not to make it personal, but I just want to say to our colleagues, the thing that I've been harping on all year long, all day long, is consistency, fairness. I don't know what the numbers are, I don't know, but I do know that there's some type of discrepancy between what was said. Well, really, we got the memo, and I noticed that, here I go again. If it was the CRA or something like that, it would be hell on wheels. And we need police. I respect police. Let me put that on the record. I appreciate police, and we definitely need, but, guys, we got to be fair and consistent. Now, there's going to be a side of me that's going to come out if I see inconsistency, because I don't want to be played. If we're going to be fair, if we're going to be consistent, we got to be fair and we got to be consistent. We talked about sacred cows. Maybe, just maybe, we just identified one.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Apparently, Sergeant Ortiz is quoting a June report that hasn't been issued yet. I don't know where he got these figures from.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to have the budget directors give us the figures. They're going to get a copy of the figures. They can go over it and come back to us. Okay?
I've been getting them from everywhere. And just for the record, we still haven't gotten our money for physicals, vehicles, or uniforms. So I don't know how we can be in budget when those three items haven't been made. They just made adjustments when we have contractual obligations.
You meet with the budget department and you put them out today. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?